Well, look out the window there. It is a beautiful day here in South Florida. The sun is out. The markets, though, are under duress after yesterday's rip your face off rally. And so what is it that we need to know today, right? What is it that investors need to understand between what happened yesterday and what's happening today and what's going to happen, in the days to come? So as you know, yesterday's rally is fading into today, right? As I told you, markets in Europe down better than 2% after surging 7% yesterday. Diplomatic talks in Turkey between Putin and Zelensky failed to produce a ceasefire. Oil is again in rally mode after yesterday's decline. The ECB is getting ready to make a statement on policy, and that's going to be something that all investors, especially across Europe, are going to be watching. All while the U.S. is bracing for a strong CPI report. What do we have for dinner tonight? We're going to have the grilled skirt steak with a pesto sauce. It's simple to make, yet very good. And skirt steak's a bit economical. Okay, so listen, yesterday it was a rip-your-face-off rally, right? U.S. futures in the morning suggesting it was going to be a good day in the U.S., and investors were not disappointed at all. Algos, traders, investors going all in, taking stocks higher. By the time the closing bell rang, the Dow had gained 655 points or 2%. The S&P up 107 or 2.5%. The NASDAQ gained 460 points or 3.6%, while the Russell was up 55 points or 2.7%, and the transports gained 406 points or 2.7%. And while this was good, it paled into comparison what European markets had done. Investors in Europe took European markets up more than 7% during the trading session on Wednesday. They were scooping up names here yesterday that had gotten really beaten up over the past 3 weeks that were all in well oversold conditions. Some of my favorites: Nvidia up 7%, AMD up 5%, JP Morgan up 4%, Bank of America up 6%, Apple up 3.5%, Microsoft up 4.5%, Amazon up 2.5%. And names that I point out in prior notes that investors might consider, they did well as well. Cleveland Cliffs up 4.6%. Steel up 5.8%, NUI up 3.2%, Steel Dynamics up 2.8%, Raytheon up 3.8%, Hack, which is cybersecurity, up 2.5%, while ITA and Aerospace and Defense ETF was up 2.5% as well. Across the sectors, what we saw were the most beaten up sectors doing the best, and that makes sense. Technology up 4%, communications up 3%, basic materials up 3%, financials up nearly 4%, consumer discretionary up 3.5%. Energy, which had gone parabolic over the last couple of weeks, came under some pressure as trader types and investors were ringing the cash register, sending the XLE ETF down 3%. And as you would expect, utilities, XLU, also fell by about 0.7% as money moved out of the safety utilities into more beaten up sectors. And yes, as the market went higher, the offsetting hedges that we've been talking about all took it on the chin. Dog down 2%, PSQ down 3.7%, and SH down 2.5%. And the 3 times levered direction ETF got hit 3 times. The SPX short fell by 8%, while the 3 times levered direction long ETF, the XPXL, advanced by the same amount, 8%. In the end, it is the war between Russia and Ukraine that is fueling the chaos in stocks and commodities, currencies, bonds, and cryptos. And the headlines continue to hit the tape. The moves become exaggerated and challenging. The economic impacts only beginning to be felt will also continue to cause analysts and strategists to have to redefine year-end valuations. The idea that rising inflation coupled with lower economic growth are going to collide and should not be a surprise when they do. We could end up with that 1970s style stagflation. And let me remind those of us who lived it how ugly it was, and let me inform those who were not around how ugly it can get. And while you think it can't happen because this time it's different, let me offer up my opinion. Wishful thinking. Do not go there because it can absolutely happen in my senses. Unless they do something dramatic, that's where we're going. Add in the predicament that the Fed has gotten us into and is now trying to get us out of. And remember, they're still stimulating today. They are still buying bonds. They are still holding rates at zero. But that's all about to change. And today's economic data is going to offer up a clue on just what we can expect. The Consumer Price Index, the CPI, is due out at 8:30 this morning, and we are bracing for the announcement. The survey says that the core CPI month over month is going to be up 0.8%, which is up from 0.6 last month. Ex-food and energy up 0.5%, which actually be down from last month's 0.6. CPI year over year, though, is expected to be at 7.9%, up from 7.5% last month, while ex-food and energy is expected to be up 6.4%, which is up from last month's 6%. And these numbers don't really even include the inflationary effects that we're going to start to see as a result of this geopolitical crisis. Oh no, those inputs are going to be reflected in the reports in the months ahead because that just started to happen. So if we get a little kicker today, expect a bigger kicker next month. The producer price index, the PPI survey, is due out next Tuesday, and that is expected to be even more inflationary. I think of it having a 10 handle on it. And what you need to understand about that is that the increase in prices at the producer level usually take about 2 months to work its way through to the consumer level, which should tell you to expect higher prices going into late spring, early summer. And if this war drags on, prices will go even higher. And what do we hear from members of the Fed and the Fed chair? It's temporary, kind of. We got this, kind of, and no need to worry. Oh boy, that's where we need to start to worry, right? While we're expecting a 25 basis point increase next week, future moves remain vague, right? Will they be 25 or 50 basis points? That depends just on how much inflation pressure we get. And my guess is we're going to get plenty of it. I just don't see how anyone thinks this is going to ebb over the summer and how inflation is suddenly going to retreat. But I hope I'm wrong. I just don't see how that narrative plays out. Remember, oil has spiked, and oil touches so many things that you use every day, things that you don't even think about that are going to go up in price because of the increase in the price of oil. And this all feeds into the producer level, right? So you see how that's all connected? What happens at the producer level, the input level, why the PPI report becomes so important. And we haven't even discussed how the price of oil affects the transportation industry, trains, planes, shipping, and railroads. Think FedEx and UPS. Think airlines, cargo ships. Think cruise ships. Think all those Amazon delivery trucks. Think Uber and Lyft. Who exactly do you think is going to foot those increase in bills? I mean, we've already seen Uber and Lyft rates skyrocket. Recall the story I told you when I was in New York, last November. And I called an Uber to go from the West Village to Midtown, a total of 4 miles. I was quoted $60. $60 to go 4 miles in an Uber. I'm afraid to think what it is now, as oil prices were, then oil was trading in the 70s. Now we're trading at 130. This morning we wake up and we find that U.S. futures are down. I hope that's not really a surprise. Dow futures down 300, S&P's down 50, the NASDAQ down 200, and the Russell down 30. Today's eco data is going to give us something else to discuss while we try to speculate what this report is going to cause the Fed to do or not, right? Is this move already priced in? What if it's stronger than expected? What if it's weaker than expected? There is so much to consider and discuss. The geopolitical news is also going to be fighting for center stage, and on that front, there is plenty to discuss. Diplomatic talks between the two countries are ongoing. Word that Zelensky is willing to discuss some options helped markets yesterday, but word that there is no progress is hurting markets today. And then the headline that Vlad accuses the U.S. of waging a de facto economic war with Russia is putting more pressure on markets as well. In addition, scenes of bombed out civilian targets are not helping the tone at all, nor is it helping, kind of the psyche. I mean, just the global humanitarian psyche. Anyway, in Europe, markets there are in retreat after Wednesday's spectacular surge higher. The latest Russian-Ukraine headlines driving much of the action there, right? At 5:15 this morning, news hit the tape that there was no progress on those ceasefire talks that are taking place in Turkey. And that when that hit the tape, we also found pleas by Zelensky to have the allies impose a no-fly zone, and they appear to be falling on deaf ears. So the news continues to be negative. Right? On the economic front, investors are also awaiting the latest monetary policy announcement from the ECB, right? The European Central Bank. Surging energy prices across Europe are expected to ignite another round of inflationary pressure across the zone and the expected economic slowdown that's coming. And I'm sure Christine Lagarde doesn't have enough Advil to stop her head from pounding. The key here is going to be in what she says concerning how fast or not the ECB will be in tightening. Right? Their very loose policy stance. At 8 a.m. this morning, markets across the Eurozone were down a little better than 3+%, give or take. 10-year treasuries this morning they fell yesterday, sending yields up significantly to close out the day, yielding 1.95%. That's just about where they are this morning. Gold sold off 60 yesterday as stocks rallied on what many thought would be good news, the ceasefire. But with the latest headline suggesting a nothing done, investors are taking gold back up, currently trading up $10 at nearly $2,000 an ounce. Oil is also rallying on the back of the latest news concerning attempts at a ceasefire which have failed. Oil now is up 4.5% at $113 a barrel. Cryptos again are under pressure. The surge yesterday due to the news that Joey has created a panel to discuss the future role of cryptos, how to create them, regulate them, prevent them from being used for illicit purposes, etc., etc. And that gave them a breath of life yesterday. But in the end, it was vague and it offered nothing of any substance yet. So cryptos are once again under pressure. Bitcoin this morning is trading at 39,000 and Ethereum is trading at 2,600. Remember, Bitcoin traded as high as 43,000 yesterday. And Ethereum was closer to 2,800. Look, the geopolitical drama is far from over, and the central bank drama is just about to begin. Global investors need to brace themselves for surging inflation and the possibility of slower global growth due to rising rates. The next 4 or 5 months will remain skittish and volatile, and if this war drags on for much longer, then the markets will remain skittish for longer. The idea that the second half of 2022 will improve continues to be the narrative that many analysts are pushing. And while I want to be in that camp, I'm not so sure yet, right? I need more data. I have to see what goes on with Russia, Ukraine. I have to see what goes on with these inflationary pressures, right? There's so much to kind of unpack here. Remember, the markets can deal with clarity, whether it's good or bad. What it has trouble with is its inconsistency and uncertainty about the news headlines, right? When they're inconsistent and uncertain is when the markets, go into, they shoot first and ask questions later mode. The S&P ended the day up yesterday 107 points. They ended at 4277. We remain in the 41.14, 44 trading range. 41.14 is still the key level to watch on the downside. I suspect that any advance is going to be met with significant resistance, unless, of course, there is a change in the narrative. If you want to put new money to work, put it in your account, but leave it in cash, ready to jump when the tone changes. Feel free to tweak any of the other holdings, but if they're core holdings and the story is the story that you bought them for, then just sit tight. If you're concerned, buy some hedges to soften any blow lower. Continue to make your shopping list and take advantage of the obvious dislocations that are created. Like the latest moves yesterday, Nvidia, AMD, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Apple. They all had significantly moves lower, but those companies are core holdings. On a side note, did you see the Amazon news? They're splitting their stock 20-for-1 and initiating a massive $10 billion buyback. The stock surged 7% in the news. So anyone that wanted to buy it but felt like they couldn't afford it, just sit tight. It's about to become a $150 or so stock, right, on June 6th. So give or take, depending on where it goes, is going to dictate the final pricing on June 6th. But it should be about 150, 180, something like that. Okay, so what are we having for dinner today? We're going to have this grilled skirt steak with a pesto sauce, right? Skirt steak is underrated, I think. It's actually easy to cook, it's very flavorful, and it's relatively cost effective in this high price environment. Although it's up, it is up, but it's not nearly up as much as, say, a ribeye, right? So for this, you're going to need pesto sauce with a splash of white wine vinegar in it and the steak. Now, you're going to make the pesto. If you don't have the pesto already, you're going to make the pesto by combining a cup of packed fresh basil leaves, olive oil, toasted pine nuts, garlic, salt, pepper, Parmigiana cheese, and 2 tablespoons of white wine vinegar. Blend it all in the food processor and then just set it aside. Now you want to preheat your grill, right? Get it nice and hot. On a separate note, season the skirt steak just with salt and pepper and set it aside. Now, clean your grill. Now it's nice enough. So take your grill brush, clean the grill really, really nicely. Turn the heat down to medium, right? Now, with a cloth and the grill brush really quickly, oil the grates with a cloth, right? So put some olive oil on the cloth and take the brush and just oil the grates really quick. And do it quick because they're hot. And now get your skirt steaks, right? Put them on the grill. 3 to 5 minutes per side should produce a medium rare finished product, right? So if you want to You want it pink in the middle, 3 to 5 minutes max, because they're thin, so they'll cook relatively quickly. Now you want to place this on a platter, brush the steak with the pesto sauce, and let it rest for 5 minutes or so. Tent it with tinfoil to keep it warm. When ready, slice it at an angle, right, so it's pretty, and serve it with a large mixed salad. Keep the dressing simple. Maybe fresh lemon juice, olive oil, salt and pepper, and dried oregano. It's perfect. You'll enjoy this dish with a nice Chianti. Simple. Again, it's about cost effectiveness, right? This is not a meal that deserves a super Tuscan, right? A Chianti is fine with this dish. And you can never really go wrong. Chianti's Chianti, right? I mean, listen, in any event, it's a nice day outside. I think it's going to be a nice day here. Let's only hope that it's going to be a nice day and we're going to get some good news out of Europe. In any event, until tomorrow, take good care.